So now moving over to video number 2, so I'm just going to be going through some of the comments briefly, not all of them because I don't have time. I'll get back to some more of them another time. So one comment was on the topic of masking, camouflaging, and you said that rarely, if ever, can autistic people mask with complete success, as others will see something is not right. Even if they don't detect autism, usually someone will detect, other people will get a sense that this person isn't that socially fluent. They'll get some sense, even if they don't know what it is, if they can't put their finger on it. You know, they might not necessarily think a person's autistic, particularly if they have a very stereotypical understanding of what autism is, and they're expecting to see more like overtly obvious signs. But they usually will get a sense that something is a bit off in the interaction, and this obviously can then mean that they just treat the person differently or judge them in some way, but they might put their own spin on it. Maybe thinking the person's lacking confidence or all these other things, and they might put their own spin on it, but needless to say, it will affect the interaction, and this will make it harder for the person to bond with others and make friends, and social affiliation will be disrupted. I agree, completely. The commenter also says if no one suspects a problem, then they would question if a person is really autistic. So in other words, if a person can camouflage or mask, or whatever you want to call it, I said in my other video, I think some of these terms are a bit problematic, but I'll use them for want of better words. If someone can do that to such an extent that no one suspects they are autistic ever, then they're probably not autistic. Yes, I 100% agree. I notice this a lot with these new age so-called autistics. I call them autistics, because I don't think they really are autistic. People like, who I think are, at the mildest, who I think, to be generous, are border autism phenotype, or maybe have some other condition like ADHD, but I'm talking about people like Christine McGuinness, these very able people. You know, she actually said, I do remember when I saw that documentary that she was on, where she actually said she didn't really see a need for a diagnosis anyway, but she'd go and see Simon Baron-Cohen to find out. So the very fact she said she didn't really feel she needs one kind of says it all, really. Yeah, like these people might have one of those unnamed syndromes that Uta Frith talked about, so I'm not saying they don't have any difficulties, and I actually do think there is a broader kind of spectrum of social difficulties which hasn't yet been dissected or properly researched, and I think that maybe it kind of shares some family resemblance to the autistic conditions, including Asperger's, and might even be, in some cases, possibly share some genes. But I think that because it's so much milder, obviously that doesn't mean it's mild for the person who has it. They might still have a lot of difficulties, but because it's so much less pronounced in terms of like their social problems, like they can still, they can still like essentially relate to other people and form connections and build careers and things like that. I just feel it needs to be given a different name. I do feel that very strongly. I think that benefit everyone actually, because they'll get the support and understanding they need. They'll have a recognised condition, they can get diagnosed, but it will just make it clear that this is separate to what people like me have, which is a real social disability. Like I literally have no idea how to make a relationship. I have no idea, and I can't relate to people normally at all, as you know, because I've talked about this a lot. And I'm like, how do these people actually form relationships when I don't even know if someone fancies me? I mean, obviously it's hard for me because I happen also to be a lesbian, so that obviously narrows the pool a bit, but even so, like, that isn't, you know, you could, like, what I mean is, if I wasn't autistic and I was a lesbian, I would certainly have, for likelihood is, I certainly have a partner by now. I mean, it's not that difficult, particularly with social media and everything, and like, not social media, sorry, dating sites. You know, it's a lot easier for people in niche populations now to find partners as long as you have social skills. And I don't have social skills. I have literally no idea how to do that. Or I have like very superficial social skills, but they don't enable true social relatedness, unfortunately. Um, So yeah, I'm like, how can these people do it? Like, they must have some social ability to at least know how to like get someone interested in them, right? You know what I mean? They must do, and I don't have that. I mean, I can't even make friends normally, so you know. And I've tried a lot, and it's never worked. I think part of it is actually I struggle with social motivation. It's like a catch-22. I kind of wish I could connect with other people because I know I'm missing out, and obviously I know it puts me at a disadvantage not being able to form connections with others because you don't, you know, particularly not having anyone there for you, particularly when I get old. It's not a nice prospect, but I also lack for social motivation, and that's part of my autism. I really do struggle with social motivation. I'd much rather be following my interests and things like that than interacting with others because I much prefer that solitary state. I'm self-absorbed. I much prefer my doing things my way. I'm not good at reciprocity. I really struggle listening to people when I'm not interested in what they're talking about. It bores me absolute shitless. I do end up interrupting and diverting a conversation back to my interests. It comes back to that whole masking thing. Masking, if you want to call it that. I can try to do what I know society expects of me to try and listen to others, but it will break down because I cannot maintain the act. It will happen that I will completely switch off, and then eventually I'll be like, I'm so pissed off of this, you know what, bye-bye, I'm going back to myself. And that's what happens. That's because I'm autistic. So, yeah, social motivation is probably the biggest reason. Oh yeah, someone else says, I thought this was quite funny in the comments, my main social adaptation is trying to shut up. You know, so that's their main social adaptation is trying to shut up. Yeah, completely get you there. Seriously, I'm a talker. I'm a talkaholic. I have logorrhea, big time. Funnily enough, at one of the groups I go to, there's this other autistic person there. One of the autistic groups I go to was actually really similar to me. He's a bit more high functioning than me, I would say, in some ways. Although he's obviously autistic, like you can tell. Like classic Asperger's, I would say. And I'm surprised he wasn't diagnosed as a child actually, because seriously he's pretty obvious. Like, he's someone that, like, you could just suss it out. Like, he's someone that if I were to meet, like, I don't know, say if it was AGK or whatever, and he came in as a customer, I'd be like, I bet he's autistic. You could just tell sometimes. But yeah, he kind of like reminds me a little bit of me, like a male version of me. We often joke that he is the male version of me because we both talk like way too much, and he really struggles with like not talking, but he's really, really nice and really funny, and I really like him, but he talks a lot. So yeah, logorrhea. So yeah, that's kind of like a classic Aspergian symptom, really, not being able to shut up and just going on and on about your interests, you know. Oh yeah, one of you has commented quite recently on the fact that you were assessed or diagnosed when you were young. I'm not sure if you mean autism or whether you mean another developmental condition. I'm assuming you mean autism, but that you were assessed diagnosed young, but no one told you. Your parents didn't tell you, and that affected your mental health. However, you were sort of in a catch-22 situation where you wouldn't have been able to handle it either if you had been informed earlier, as you were not mature enough. So on the one hand, not knowing did affect your mental health because you thought you were weird and everything. But on the other hand, if you had been told, it might have also affected your mental health because you wouldn't have been able to deal with it, which is a relatable catch-22 situation. I do wish that I had been diagnosed when I was 10. I think that would have been the best time for me to have been diagnosed, because that was the time when I was assessed for special educational needs, and I was diagnosed with special education needs, which is incredibly stigmatic. I knew that I was different at that age. It was when I first came to awareness that I was a bit different, although it didn't really affect me too much, that understanding. I was still quite in my own little world, but I knew that I had some disability that didn't have a name. And that's why I had to leave lessons to go to room 6, as it was called, to learning support unit, feeling like a complete and utter outcast. I hated it. and that only lasted for a year anyway because, you know, as soon as I started to meet their targets, by the way, my parents were doing everything for me, so that was why. It wasn't because I was actually making progress as such, it was more that my parents were doing everything for me, but of course I didn't delve deep into that. I no longer had to go to Room 6, and that was great for me, because I hated going there. But yeah, I think if I had known, if someone had actually told me, given me a genuine reason, instead of just saying I had some undisclosed, some disability, we're not going to talk about it properly, but yeah, you have these problems, but you know, we're not going to give a name for it other than special educational needs. If someone had actually properly told me at that age what was going on, and it was done in a very sensitive way, mind, it would have had to be done sensitively, that's key. I think it would have helped me a lot in adulthood, definitely. But I can understand at the same time what the other person says about not being mature enough necessarily to deal with the information. Sadly, as a teenager, when I went into a state of huge denial, I definitely would have been able to take it in at that age. So, and then they talk about the overprescription of Adderall drugs for ADHD and people who don't have ADHD, which can contribute to the self-diagnosis of ADHD by poor medics or clinicians or overprescribing ADHD in people. I do see that a lot. I think that might be more an American thing. I think you're speaking as an American person, and I do notice this. I think I'm assuming you are from the USA. I think I got that right. But I think from what I've read, that in the USA there is a greater problem with overprescription of psychiatric drugs. I'm not sure if it's so much a case in the UK. Someone can maybe enlighten me on that matter, but I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, I will come back to going through more of these comments because I haven't got time to do so now. But thank you for watching.